Can we get a shot of the little Cobra, the little collectible car on the front of the desk? This is just a very, very cool car. It wasn't that actual car. It was a sister car to this that was driven by my next guest. He won his class at Le Mans in a Cobra, went on to drive Formula One. He was a technical director, consultant, if you will, for the movie Grand Prix, and then suffered career-ending injuries. And maybe he'll tell us this story. It's a breathtaking story in a Can-Am car crash at Watkins Glen. Let's get another one of those big PRI WindTunnel special edition cheers and rounds of applause for racing legend Bob Bondurant. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob, come on up here. Watch how he walks. Look how well he walks. That's a setup for a story to come. Bob, welcome. Sit down, make yourself comfortable. Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
How old are you now?
Now?
Yeah.
76.
If it helps you to hear, put those things on. 76 years old and looking pretty spry. Now, can you hear okay?
Now I can hear you fine.
Glad to have you here.
He's out in a race car every day, too.
Well, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Has stayed young in part by staying in the seat. But, well, we'll save the story why I wanted people to notice how well you walk. I'm always interested in starting the story at the beginning. How did you get interested in and involved in racing? What triggered that?
Well, my dad used to take me to the midget auto races when I was 8 years old, and I thought, God, that'd be fun to do.
Yeah.
Ironically, I've never raced a midget.
Is that right?
I raced everything else.
Raced everything but. Started on motorcycles, got into sports cars, went through the Southern California sports car scene to the point where you won virtually everything in Corvettes. And do I have this right? It was at that point that you hooked up with Carroll Shelby?
Pretty much so, yeah.
How'd that come about?
Well, Shelby told me he was going to build a Corvette beater. And I said, oh, BS. You never will, because we used to run 35 Corvettes in those days, and there's a lot of fiberglass laying around after the race. But he was going to build this car called the Cobra. And he said, I want you to drive it. And so we talked about it, and it was supposed to be ready a certain date, and it wasn't. Then another date, and it wasn't. And another date, and it wasn't. And the gentleman I used to race for, the Corvette 614, he wanted to buy a new Corvette, a race car, but he said, I could only do that if you drive it. So I said, he said, you only have to do one race. And I said, okay, I'll do that. Well, lo and behold, Billy Krause drove the first Cobra and blew us all off. And that was the beginning of the Cobra. And it had broke a half shaft, but you know, they'll fix all that good stuff. Yeah.
So you became teammates with Dan Gurney, went off to Le Mans, won the GT class in the Cobra, and then went on to win the world, what was called the World Manufacturers Championship. It was essentially the World Sports Car Championship.
Right.
I'm curious about, it's a legendary story, the extent to which Shelby viewed Enzo Ferrari as the man to beat, rightly so, but it was very personal, I gather, but at least for Carroll, on Carroll's side. Tell me what you know about that relationship and that motivation.
Well, back in those days, drivers that drove for Ferrari, a lot of them got killed racing. And a friend of Shelby's got killed, and he said, somehow I'm going to get back at Ferrari. Yeah, and that was the personal part of it. And Carroll's a super guy. Yeah. And he tells you something, he does it.
And he did, in fact, go off and defeat Ferrari. But that led to a job interview for his driver, you. Tell me about that.
Oh, yes. Well, when I met Ferrari.
Yeah.
We beat Ferrari, and then I got a message I should come down to the factory, Ferrari factory, and meet what we used to call him Old Man Ferrari, Enzo Ferrari. So I came down there, and I thought, wow, just that in itself is incredible. And I guess I'm only one of about 4 or 5 of the most Americans that ever met Enzo.
Yep.
And during the talk, he said, would you like to live in Italy? I said, see, driving Formula Uno, Formula One. He said, but you must drive the prototypes, prototipo. I said, that's not a problem. We've been driving the Ford GT40s in Ken Miles, and I with the 2 drivers that sorted out the Cobras and the GT40s.
Right.
And so I was well aware of that. And but I told them, I said, Ford is going to have more horsepower than you next year. Ford will never beat Ferrari. And I said, well, they might. No, so we had a nice talk for about half hour, 45 minutes. And then he took me out into the race shop. And he said, over here is the prototypos, the prototypes. Very proud, and he made his cars winners forever. Oh, but over here is Formula Uno. Very, very proud. I said, see, I like Formula Uno.
Yeah.
And
give me one of those.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I said, when will you let me know? He said, when I decide. And I said, would that be in a week or 2? And he looked at me and said, when I decide. So I said, okay, shut your mouth, Bondurant, and wait. I left and went up to Monza for the Formula One races on Sunday, and they have a pre-race on Saturday with Formula 3 cars. And I actually didn't have a ride when I got there. I was going up there early to possibly get a test drive with Brabham and also Honda, and they all had problems testing. So I got a ride in a Formula 3 car, and I ended up winning the race.
Won the race.
Yeah, I thought, I was amazed too, because during the race, Italians get all excited. So you line up for the pre-grid, all of us, and then they wave the yellow flag gently, and then everyone moves forward to the racing grid, and then they drop the green flag. Well, it started raining just before we were ready to take off. And this Italian gets all excited. He's waving the yellow flag back. He's starting the race, and damn, everyone started taking off. And my teammate was behind me, and he went by. I thought, well, screw it, just stand on the gas. We all went in to do turn 1, the curve of ground, 4 abreast. If England had touched wheels, we would have taken out a lot of cars. But we all made it, and at the end of that heat race, it was 2 heat race, I finished 4th. And I spun once in the Ascari turf, very fast, left-handed. And as you spin around, you shift down to 2nd gear, left clutch out, and keep going.
Keep going.
And then the next race, you could not work on the car in between the races. So the guy that won, turned out he had a dead battery, so he couldn't race. And then the other 2 guys were 2 wild Italians, and they really wanted to win for Ferrari.
Yep.
Said, oh, see, I'm there. It picked me up. And so it stopped raining, and in turn Lesmo 1 and 2, trees overgrew that. And I thought, there may be some water in pores of the asphalt. I always think detail things. And so we got a great start. And in those days, they didn't have guardrail. They had a hedge. And so we entered turn Lesmo 1 and 2. The first Italian guy, there was water in the pores. He spun, disappeared through the hedge, never saw him again.
Yep.
In the next corner, the second guy did the same thing. And I thought, wow.
Here I am.
Yeah, but I had a nice race-long battle, and we ended up winning.